under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What a packed house, nice. I think we'll be kind of popular. Or not, we could start with comments from the assembly. Or we can take comments, during the review of Burke's Zone. It's up to you folks.
I'd like to say something.
Could you identify yourself? Just
Yes, I'm on the list. Terry Robinson. Last month, Berks County Planning Commission sent a reply to the Berks Homes proposal for housing on the IOP property of Vernon Violet. When you asked for a review of the report, the commission, there was a lot that wasn't said. After spending $100,000 or hundreds of thousands of dollars of assessing land in Berks County said the Byler property is specially designated as an economic development area. Special because in Canaveral Township, in their assessment, has only 2 areas left, which are prime business and commercial development properties. The business park, which we know across by Walmart, I'll say, and the Byler property. Their recommendation was clearly written and was not mentioned last month. And it says, as I read, the economy section of the county's plan designates portions of the township's IOP district and proposed overlay district as economic development areas. Economic development areas should be reserved for commercial and industrial development, and residential development is not recommended. Therefore, where land is identified as an EDA, economic development area, the proposed overlay district would not be consistent, with the county comprehensive plan. So we are asking you, the commission, to refuse to rezone the Byler property to allow Berks housing proposal. And we base it on Berks County Planning Commission thinks it's a bad use of property. Second of all, I handed you almost 350 signatures of people from this community that said it was a bad use of property as well. And there were other signatures and other people who have spoken against this development to you individuals and supervisors. So, you will be encouraged tonight to change the zoning. We ask for your future, our future, and the posterity of this township that you refuse the change in the zoning. Thank you.
Okay. Kind of want to refute a lot of what he said. I've actually been looking at economic development in this area prior to the auto mall and the casino. I've been talking to county economic development for years. They said basically Berks County is short on housing. We're 10 years short on housing. People are not moving here because the prices aren't where they should be. And basically, in talking with them today, our area is a great opportunity to get more housing in Berks County because we have the casino coming in and we need places for 300 people for the casino to live. So, excuse me? Somebody laugh? So that was the one part I looked at. I also contacted and that's actually talking with the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance, person in charge of housing there, and also talked to economic development in the past. Okay, I also spoke with the Berks Planning today because I realized that they were coming tonight. They said the reason they weren't here is because that's just not what they normally do. And it was portrayed that they would do that from other parties. But when I talked with them, they said that they only really they don't look at the Southern Berks Comprehensive Plan, they just look at the Berks Comprehensive Plan. And they said that locally, you could do what you think works best for your community. So, granted, they did not state that they were for it. We have a history of not always listening to them, since we have just did 2 text amendments recently where they said no and we still pursued it. So in that reasoning, I think it's a good move for our community, because we do need more housing. Houses are selling within 5 days in this area. This is a very, very desirable district, and people want to live here, okay? Also, majority of people, you know, granted, say, let's say rural, we haven't been rural for years, okay? I've been here for over 20 years. Most people do want more of a grocery store type environment, more restaurants. They come with more rooftops. So I think that your board should at least let the text amendment go out so that we can at least, as a public, review it and make a decision. It's only right to give it a chance. So thank you for your time.
Any other comments at this time? Alright, next, I think we have a review of the meeting minutes from the prior meeting.
Anyone have any questions concerning the change, I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes.
Okay,
I'll
that's
second
second.
that.
All in favor?
Aye.
No current plan reviews, future plan reviews, I think we have this on here as a holder for next month, okay? Other business, we're at the Bergson zoning text amendment.
Is it okay for us to speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Gary McEwen with Burke's Homes. Mr. Colby, who's our attorney. Mr. Horning, who's one of the owners. Sean Swigert, who's also one of the owners. And Mr. and Mrs. Byler, who you all know, and they're the owner of the property. I want to explain, you folks were good and willing to grant the invitation, which was well written, by the way. To the executive director told Mr. Farino in person that he couldn't come on the invitation of a developer, but could come on the invitation of a planning commission or township. Then he talked to his solicitor, and his solicitor said, recommended that he should not attend because it would look preferential to a development company, and that's not something they do. So that's the explanation why he's not here. Appreciate that you guys were willing to extend that invitation. Also with their review, and I think Michelle is correct, they're a reviewing agency. They review it based on their comp plan. It's advisory. The township can follow it or not follow it. Just to review where we've come from. Originally, you all know we submitted a plan, commercial, apartments, towns, and singles. The apartments received a lot of negative feedback. We took the apartments off. That had 296 units at the time. We reduced it 25% to 225 units, 135 singles, and 86 townhomes. No apartments and still a commercial piece on the front. In many of the conversations, there was discussion about taxes. And the only tax information that I gave you folks was what the property taxes would be from year to year. I did not include transfer tax, which will amount to $350,000. That'll spread over 5 years, $70,000 a year. And I have this on a spreadsheet, and I'll hand it out. And then the earned income tax, which is a reoccurring tax year after year. Because I heard that kind of loud and clear that was one of the concerns. So if we look at this project as a 5-year project and assume that the combined household income was $150,000. I also did it for $100,000, which is probably on the light side. So we might fall somewhere in the middle. That averages out to, once the project's built out, $333,000 a year. And, I have it broken down on the sheet that way. So, I heard early on that the taxes were not enough to sustain the services that may be provided. Also want to remind you that most of the streets are going to be private. They're going to be paying the same amount of taxes, but the streets are going to be maintained by a homeowners association, so the township gets a little bit of a bump, a little bit of a help there. So just to reiterate, transfer taxes, $350,000, so roughly $70,000 every year for 5 years, and then residential rolls every 7 years. So the norm is in 7 years, all the houses will turn. So you'll start to realize that again from the township standpoint. So with all the real taxes that you'll receive, I think you can see that there's a substantial amount of taxes. One thing, if it's commercial, remains commercial, the earned income tax, which could range anywhere from 110 to 165, would go away. You would get a privilege tax to work in the township. I believe you have that, but it's nowhere near the 0.5% of the earned income. Also, in the past years for school enrollment, we gave you up-to-date school enrollment to show that there isn't a current burden on the district. That's an up-to-date feasibility study, and it's also current day folks, kids that are in school. We talked about that part of the plan is to relocate Willow Glen, take it to the intersection where there's a traffic light. Also indicated there could be a direct connection to Highcroft that would give them better access down to the current traffic light across from Lowe's. We've talked about traffic. We don't want to rehash traffic tonight, just that we gave you preliminary numbers on traffic. Until there's a real traffic study done, no matter what goes on to this property, there's going to be traffic. And I think we indicated that depending on the uses that are currently there, it could actually be higher than residential. Talked about signal coordination through the corridor to improve the flow through the corridor. And residential is not gonna have tractor trailers going in to the site like commercial would be. The Bylers have been patient on their property. 2017, when they had a buyer for another use, which turned out to be not something that could work. They were under the impression there would be a zoning change coming, under the impression that there would be a residential component with that. You heard them say last month that they were happy with the plan. They liked what we presented to them. So for 4 years they've been patient, and I hope it's not something where whatever the Bylers want to do on the property, that they have a buyer that's interested is not going to be approved. At some point, something's got to move forward on this property, and this is something they would like to do. I think they've been very patient with you folks. So what we're requesting tonight is that the Planning Commission would recommend to the supervisors to support the IOP overlay. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Patient with us. They could sell the property anytime and develop it if they sell it to a proposal for a by right use. You know what I'm saying? That property's zoned for by right uses right now, and you could build with any plans, the way you present that, that's wrong. All of us, I shouldn't say all, a lot of us here own properties, but we can't find a buyer for a toxic waste dump and expect the township to zone our property to dump toxic waste there so we can get millions of dollars for our property. It's not right. That's why you have zoning, to protect the residents of the community.
In all due respect, what point of my comment was that at that time, what they wanted to do on their property, they couldn't do. Not gonna get into the reasons why.
Because it wasn't a by right use. Well, you're talking about the distribution warehouse, right?
That's past history. I really don't wanna go
Well,
talk
you just
about the
brought it
ordinance.
up.
Okay. It was approved, you guys did an ordinance to do a text
not
message.
approved.
You want me to see it?
It
Listen,
was not
I said we're
approved.
not gonna rehash it, Alan.
Yeah, well, you brought it up. It was never approved. It was not a by right use, and that, it would have been a problem.
But at the time, wasn't it said that the township was looking at rezoning that property and there was an indication that some residential might be part of it?
I believe that's possible. This planning commission was talking about possibly allowing some residential in the IOP, because for the last, 30 years or whatever, it was not allowed at all. But there is existing residential in there, that homes that were like grandfathered, they were built, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, prior to zoning. So the planning commission was talking about possibly allowing some residential in there, because there is some there. But we're not talking big housing developments, we're talking like individual homes here and there.
So this commission or the supervisors gave to Mr. and Mrs. Fowler an indication that they would consider residential.
I don't
Use.
believe they talked to Mrs. Bott. We talked in here in the meeting. Maybe rumors got out about it, or, people talk, but no one said anything to them that we were gonna definitely allow residential in there.
I didn't say definitely, I said it would be considered.
Yeah, we were
We actually
considering.
were, this board actually discussed considering residential and how much residential. Can we change the zoning to put a minimal residential area on the back side of the property, meaning the north side, farthest away from Route 23, nearest Highcroft? That was all discussions that we did have.
And we talked about
When
mixed
we were
use.
going to rezone it. We also talked about mixed use. When you guys brought your presentation to us, we were in the middle of talking about that property and the rezoning of it. And when you brought your presentation to us, that kind of stopped us talking about it to see what was gonna happen with this. So yes, that's true, we did talk
For
about
the
it.
record, what we're proposing is mixed use.
Yeah, your version of mixed use. My version of mixed use, when we were talking about it in here, was commercial and residential, like on the same lot, like Eagle View or whatever, where you have, mixed use between commercial and residential. Your version is mixed use, apartments, townhomes, and single-family dwellings.
That's what mixed use is. Look it up in any planning manual, you'll see it.
I think it's
I'm not a builder.
percentage issue.
I'm telling you what we were talking about, the Eagle View plan.
Well, I think what we're telling you is the plan is a mixed-use plan, and it also includes a commercial component, which you forget about every meeting.
Yeah, a small commercial component, yes. But we never got to the point of discussing here how much residential we were gonna allow in that district. We don't wanna turn it from a commercial
There's a
district to
proposal- There's a
50/50.
proposal in front of you now, is the residential use.
Yes, and I don't like the proposal at all.
That's fine.
you know.
You clearly stated that for
Yes,
9 months.
the commercial properties are the
Alan, I
economic
understand-
engine of the
I
community.
understand your
They pay our
position.
police department, they pay for our everything, our road construction.
Well, I think if you do the math, and what I just gave you, I don't think your commercial is gonna yield a whole lot more in taxes than what this proposal is gonna grant you. And if you look at the commercial that we have, it's valued at 1.25 per million dollars per acre. If you factor that over the whole project and not even take out the open space, that comes to about $69 million. The total, if you look on that sheet I gave you, the total of the residential that we're proposing plus the commercial comes to about, I think I didn't write it down, $67 million. So your gross property taxes are gonna be very close when you look at the market value. But what you don't get in the commercial that you get in the residential is the earned income tax. So your tax argument is not really valid. It's
Yeah.
very close to being the
With
same.
the commercial, you don't get students that you have to build on the schools and.
Alan,
pay those tax.
I gave you the capacity, we're at the district,
I heard your numbers.
and you don't
yes.
believe them, do you? You don't believe them, no,
Probably.
because a professional assessed all those buildings and prepared that report, but you know more than that professional.
No, I just don't trust your numbers, because a lot of things you told us in these meetings, I found to be untrue.
Like, what was that, Alan?
The traffic study.
We didn't do a full-blown traffic
I'm talking
study.
about your expert that was in here, coordinating the lights in this town will make traffic worse. These lights are working about as efficient as you can get them.
This is not productive.
This is not, I'm not
No.
having a
I
conversation.
think, I think we should just, if none of us have any questions about this thing, we should just go.
Well, I will say, currently, this community is very desirable to live here, and housing prices are high. But that can change with bad decisions. You know, people wanna move here, and there aren't enough homes to, allow everyone that wants to live here currently. But if you make wrong decisions where it's undesirable to live here, housing prices will go down and everything,
You're an expert traffic engineer, and you're also an expert
No, I'm
real estate.
not. But I'm on top of
This
that,
is,
too.
it's not, this is not productive. Like, do you have any questions?
Well, does the audience have any questions? Because the audience
Yes,
has the right to ask.
yes,
If they have questions.
yes.
Gary, was your figure on the school enrollment taking into consideration the 78 apartments, the 22 townhouses, the other apartments in Robinson Township that are being built? As far as my figures, all those new buildings that are going to be built will take away your 500 people in the school opening.
I'm not sure what the apartments you're talking about at Robinson, are they the ones that are completed? So yes, they would be in the account.
No, there's some other ones on
77 on
the,
Main Street are being built right now or soon.
They break ground?
It's right across from Beard Street.
And to answer the question on the apartments, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments typically don't yield a lot of students. 3 bedroom apartments do start to yield students. I think the average is like 1.4, 1.5 students per household. And the numbers that I gave were actual current enrollment. And there is a capacity availability, according to the school district's feasibility study, that we have capacity for 1,311 kids scattered throughout the district.
How many townhomes is already across here?
19 or 21, I think.
And those are what, 3 bedroom?
This guy's got some.
So again, I'd like to comment on calling all of you to a higher moral visionary standard. Our nation and the world is struggling. When we look at density of housing, when we look at, the casino was mentioned, when we look at those types of projects, economies, family morals go down. 7-year turnaround on a home, you restrict the number of homes put in a property like that, you keep an airstrip for sure, you're gonna have higher moral quality families who will stay in those homes for many, many years.
What's your name?
Sir?
Sorry, Tim Weaver.
Thank you.
You're a Rock, just current, are you a Kennard Township resident?
I was born, I
Are you
lived in
currently a
Carver.
Farm Township resident?
My father paid taxes here.
You live here?
I live in Torrey Hill. This is the closest.
Gary, are you running the meeting? I thought Sean's chairman.
I think we're entitled to a clarification of the qualifications of the people asking the questions, whether they're residents or not.
Yes.
But then they asked Sean to ask.
Mike? Okay.
Back to the traffic lights. I mean, I know that Morgantown Crossing opened in '04. Like, have we done any studies through another company on all the lights in town? I mean, how are you saying that they're okay without us actually doing the
Okay.
studies?
Kathy, here's what I'm basing my.
Have you had a study
Opinion.
done? My question, have you had a
No.
study done? That's all I'm
I
asking.
drive through town
Thank you.
every day or almost
No,
every day.
so you haven't got it studied, so
No,
we
but I
have
drive through
professional,
this
we don't
town and
know.
many towns every day. Okay?
Yeah, I drive all the time.
Yeah,
I could
well,
say
here's
that
the
town
thing.
traffic's horrible, doesn't mean I'm a traffic.
The traffic is horrible here at rush hour, certain times a day.
Yeah.
But in our town, okay, the main road, 23,
Okay.
has the green light. if
I
there's
just
traffic.
asked a question, I don't really, I just wanna
Well, I
know if
wanted
it
to
was done.
explain to you.
I know, I
no,
just asked, was professionally done. My next question is,
Professionally done, what does that,
have we actually brought somebody in ourselves or worked with PennDOT to go get all the road, look at all the lights in town?
and
that-
what are you asking?
I just asked if that was done, I don't know, I'm asking. That's a reasonable question. My next question is, have we ever, we rely on the Southern Berks Comprehensive Plan for our Bible. Have we ever had somebody come here actually look at our planning?
We don't rely on, they only just did that.
I know, and I was
last
at the
year.
meetings, only me and Joe.
Yeah,
I
just
know.
last year.
Yeah, I went to a couple of those meetings.
We have input, they basically developed their
No,
plan around ours.
Have we ever sat down with the school district and local, and this township and done it ourselves? Cause I think a lot of times I went to those meetings, pretty much nothing was really said on our side. It was Union and Birdsboro having fights and them couldn't understand why we were IOP. So that's something else I probably would recommend, that we actually look at maybe having somebody look at our planning with our CARES money or our COVID money and actually look at what we have instead of jumping at projects and assuming that we know the facts and we haven't done our research. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I answer the traffic question that she asked? There's only 3 lights that are coordinated in the corridor. Plum Valley Road, the 2 in front of Morgantown Crossing. The 2 in Morgantown Crossing, the timing changes have not been changed since 2004. So all the lights that can talk have not been adjusted. I don't know if that would have an impact on the traffic or not, but to answer your question, 2004 was the last time that any timing changes were done on the lights, and it was those 2 in front of Carnarvon. I don't know if Twin Valley Road, anything was done there, but according to PennDOT, 2004 was the last time they were adjusted. The other 8 are not synchronized, and I think that's what the point of our presentation was in the past.
I wanna ask you, can you please explain what you mean by synchronized?
As part of the traffic study, the timing on the lights, and I'm not an expert in traffic. This is just what I understand through seeing some studies. They do a traffic study on the volumes at different times, and then that information goes to PennDOT, and they work with PennDOT to coordinate the timing of the traffic lights so that the volume can keep moving through town. And it's based on counts, there's technical formulas that they use, but basically it's the traffic, and you know, maybe he's an engineer, he can probably answer the question better. Am I doing okay?
I'm a water sewer guy, but that is a good summary.
So that's what, and a full-blown traffic study will incorporate all the intersections. So it won't just be the corridor going through, it'll be the level of service at each intersection. So that it maintains, a level of service C or better, I believe, is what the parameters are. A obviously is very good, F is not acceptable, B is not acceptable, D is not acceptable, and C is where they kind of start. So that's what would happen with signal timing and how they would determine proper timing to help things move through the corridor.
Yeah, but that's based on theoretical traffic on that day, correct?
No, they do it at various different times. They do it at peak times, AM peak, PM peak, weekend, noon time is another time they do it around 12 o'clock. So the scope will come from your engineer or your traffic engineer, and they will determine the different times. It's always peak times, so it's always AM peak, PM peak. And then they'll determine what other times are part of that study, and then they collect all that data, and that's how they coordinate the lights.
So basically, the light on 23 and say Route 10, if there's someone on Route 10 looking to turn left, okay, he's not gonna get the light until it's time to come up with all the lights, as far as getting the green light to go, if he's got a red light on Route 10 to get on 23, correct?
I think I understand what you're saying, and I think I'm getting beyond my pay grade here, but I think what you're saying may be correct, that now maybe only one car sits there and hits the trigger, the light changes. The timing may be set so that now 3 cars sit there, hit the trigger, and then the light changes. And that's the level of service. The level of service has to do with the amount of time that you sit at a stoplight before you can move through it.
What I've observed in our town, and I don't know if it's every light, but definitely 10 and 23, it'd be Twin Valley Road and 23, and at Sheets. I'm sorry, not Sheets. It'd be those two that I observed the most. The one at Lowe's is really messed up. When I turn out the insurance agency driveway, we always get a yellow. It triggers for whatever reason since it was installed. But, okay, when traffic is run on 23 and no one's at the intersection from the cross street, right, Route 10, green light. Someone pulls up, almost instantly, if there's very little traffic or no traffic, you get the green light to go, okay? Same at Twin Valley Road in 23. If you have traffic continuously coming down Route 10 and low volume on 23, you keep getting the green light, change it. But these time systems that you're talking about, I ran into a lot this summer heading to Robizonia. And the side streets there, I guess all the lights through town are coordinated. And you might have people on side streets sitting, I did it at least 2 times for 5 minutes. While the main street that had no traffic in front of me, I'm sitting there at a light with no traffic, 5 minutes till I got the green light. Cause it was coordinated with other streets up the road, other lights at other streets up the road. I think our system's actually better than those coordinated systems in this situation.
I don't know, I drive through Twin Valley every day, probably so do you. I'll tell you what, there's times when there's no traffic on 23 and I sit there for 2.5 minutes. So,
Really?
but to answer your question, all that information gets put in there, and the PennDOT will determine the acceptable levels of service. And now you got me beyond what I know. So I can't answer.
Yes, sir.
Sean, after I heard the traffic engineer a couple times explain things, my curiosity was piqued. I have a friend that works for Aurora Engineering, and I called him and I sent him a picture of Morgantown, and I learned more from him in 10 minutes of discussing than I did from the engineer. The first thing he said was, and the biggest problem in Morgantown is, there's one trunk line east to west. Everything empties into it, and that is the problem. There's no reliever off to the sides. And so in 10 minutes, he said, that's the problem. That's not an easy problem to solve. But, I never heard these people ever suggest that it is an issue that's not easy to solve. You know, but this engineer told me, he said, I can just look at, from doing many plans, that your problem is you have one trunk line, 23, and everything comes into it. And there's the problem. There's nobody, most people don't know the little side outlets, which they don't really help you anyway.
That's what a traffic study will show. So,
Yeah, but
unless you have a traffic study,
unless you can go through and buy one of the sides of homes on Route 23 and take them down and put a wider road in, I don't see how to fix it.
well, we don't know if it can be fixed until a traffic study is done, which is part of land plans.
And just one more comment. The traffic engineer that has done a lot of work in Carnarvon Township. He's very familiar with the traffic that's in Carnarvon Township. And, I mean, I think his comments were that he believes that that the traffic can be mitigated. The backups, you may not, I don't know if you can solve them or not, but I would say his experience in Carnarvon is probably worthwhile compared to another engineer that may not have any experience in town, knowing what the traffic flows are.
Anybody else? Kind of agree with Brian, I guess before, maybe it's time to see where we stand as a board, to see, you know, what direction we go. So, I mean, as far as, I think it's a principal thing outside of it's whether we want to do the overlay or not at this point. So, you know, I'll go on record as saying at this point I would not recommend the overlay.
Well, are we looking at sending it to supervisors? Are we taking a vote on that, or?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
the
that's
vote is,
the
right?
vote.
It's just.
I think your options are to take no action tonight, you always have that option. Make a motion either for or against recommending, position to the Board of Supervisors. And then the board will have final say when it meets again. So your motion should either be the motion to recommend approval of the ordinance in the form presented, which, there's been no change since June, it's still the same version, or a motion to recommend the board reject the proposed zoning fix. So one of those two motions can be made, seconded, and if there's no further discussion, we have a vote.
Keep in mind, this isn't just for this property, remember? All the other IOPs that meet the requirements to do an overlay will be able to do it in the future if we approve it.
That's
Can I address that?
That's pretty
That's
limited.
not true, because this ordinance has a 25-acre minimum.
Yeah.
So it would have to be an IOP parcel that's greater than 25
Yes,
acres.
I said that,
25
meet
acres.
the criteria,
And do you know
yeah.
how many of those there are?
I don't think there's any.
I'm sure those farms do, but
They're right,
There's one other
no, I agree with that.
No.
It won't make it.
No. I'm okay with it.
I'll make a motion that we forward it on to supervisors. For consideration.
Have a second for that?
Is that motion to recommend, or just to be neutral, just to forward it without opposition?
Roger? You made the motion.
I guess that's the third option that you
Yeah.
could technically make, would be just to forward it to the board without taking it.
That was my thought, yeah, just to send it on. Yeah, just to forward it on for their consideration.
Okay.
I don't necessarily know if that's the best idea, because then, you know,
They have
Other
as
than-
much information
Yeah, we've
as we did.
spent some time.
so it'd be
yeah.
nice to know, all right, rather than send it with nothing, to say, all right, well, where was the, where was the board's thought on this? Was
Okay,
it-
well, I'll change my motion. And, forward on to that our recommendation is to approve the overlay.
Okay, and we need a second.
I'll second
And all in favor?
Can you speak up about, I didn't hear the motion.
To approve the overlay,
that. To recommend.
to recommend
To the
approval.
supervisors.
I'll tell you where I'm at. Straightforward, straight up. I am in a spot where I think Michelle was right when she said we need to do our homework. I don't think we should make a decision on this, yes or no, before we, and if we can do this, I think we need to do our homework as a township, not, they've done their homework. We haven't done ours, I don't think, to say yes or no to their proposal. The overlay is, I don't know that I'm fond with the overlay. I know it's spelled out, I know it's, but the difference in court is and or if. That changes the whole lawsuit. So my point is, I would like to do our homework. We were looking at what we were gonna do with that property as far as zoning. And I think we should look at that a little better. And decide really, what do we think? And I'm not saying yes or no. That's not what I'm saying.
You gotta say
When I'm
yes or no on
saying
this.
no, we don't have to say yes or no.
Well, on this motion, we do.
Well, if
That's
that's the
voting.
case, then I'm
You
gonna
can
say no
abstain.
because I'm not comfortable with it. Not right now, I'm not.
I mean, can he just not, well, can he just not vote?
Well, I mean, if he wants to table the motion, he can make a motion to table the motion at some point. And then with a second, then you vote on the motion to table. If that motion fails, then the motion Roger made is still viable, and then you vote on the motion Roger made.
And I'm not at all saying yes or no. That's not what I'm saying.
No. Or you can just vote now.
Can I say something? I really think the board should really, I don't know who that gentleman is there, his name, but him saying you should do your homework. I really agree with that. I think you should see what IOP really means and what it would do. IOP is Industrial Office Park, which means these big companies would come out from King of Prussia. They're not gonna wanna do that anymore. I know all of you probably know people who are working in their homes now that used to go. I have a grandson that has worked at King of Prussia, and now he's working in the home all the time. He doesn't go to these big office parks. I don't think there's any use for that in this community. I really don't. And we need people. We need people in order to get another big grocery store, in order to get a nice restaurant. We need more people in this community.
Can the owners survive on the sale of property, putting 3/4 acre homes in there? I lived 30 years on 3/4 acre. It gave my kids room to play and have a great outdoor experience. Can you be satisfied with reducing
Not
their
everyone
rent
is.
for income?
So he can either vote yes or no, or table.
I would like to make a motion as a table this vote. For us to do our homework a little bit, I'd like to talk to Berks County and get a more specific opinion. That's just one thing, but I think we as a board need to discuss what we want that zoning to be. I don't want to feel pressured about what we're gonna zone it. I wanna feel like we made zoning based on our community, based on what is best for our community, not just what fits right now. So you know, that's what I see personally.
That motion would need to be seconded.
Do I have a second?
So what happens if it dies?
In which Roger's motion is still on the floor. The minutes should reflect that Jeff made the motion, table, and that there was no second. So Roger's motion is what we vote on.
I say, so then we can still vote.
Yes.
I don't know, let's,
Okay.
I don't know.
So we have the motion for approval, so it's 2-4, and then we haven't had a,
Well, yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean,
I'm
it's,
kind of
you
thinking.
can do it by
about
voice vote, or you
Could
could
be-
just go down the line and vote, so that Joe needs to be able to record who votes what.
What's the motion? I'm sorry.
to approve the overlay text as it's written currently.
Or are we still talking about his motion to table that motion?
I didn't think we had,
That one died, huh?
yes.
Basically, I understand why Jeff wants the table. He's undecided yet, but the four of us are pretty well decided.
I'm also, I mean, okay, good to do.
I just think we need to find out as a board
I think that's
what needs to be there. Not for or against anyone, what we as a board, we are the planning, you know what I mean, we're the planning commission, we should be planning. And we didn't plan anything, this came to us.
Honestly.
And we really didn't plan any of it, no offense, it's no, hope there's no offense taken. But I think we need to do our homework, I think Michelle is right in saying that we didn't do our homework and we should.
Honestly though, we might have been there by now, but we got sidetracked by
Well,
this and
that's
other
neither
things.
here nor there, we're
But-
here right now.
Remember about 2 years ago, another developer came to us about that property, and he laid out a plan, you know, a proposal, what he would like to do with it, or thought he could do with it, and, asked us if we thought the supervisors and the planning commission, if that was gonna be in the new zoning. And we said we didn't think so, but we don't know, we'll have to see what happens, because we're just in the, you know, discussion stages of what was going on. But he was willing to wait until we were done. But then, these fellas decided they heard there was gonna be residential now, and they jumped on it, and that's how we got in this.
And I don't blame them, that's their business.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
we've been here for 9 months now. It's not as though we showed up last month with a plan.
Nope, I totally understand.
We've had 9 months of discussions. We've made changes based on recommendations made by this commission. And now to table it, basically tabling it is a no action.
We've had limited comments from you folks. All there was, a domination of the conversation against what we brought in, no matter what it was. And, not by everyone. So we made changes, and here we are. I mean, we've been at this a while, so to say that, and I don't know that we heard that it was gonna be changed to residential. That was a conversation that I heard recently, that there was an indication of the bylaws. That wasn't where we started. So, and there also was a component in the county's report, and I'll give you their number if you wanna call them, and you should talk to them. You folks all should talk to the county planning board.
I want to.
And, there was a piece along with that review, if you so choose to look at residential, it explained, something that we looked at in the beginning, was to look at this as a PRD, which is what they were suggesting. But the consensus from, here was to go forward as an overlay as opposed to a PRD, correct?
Well, the PRD allowed apartments, and we removed apartments from the overlay. And we tightened up, actually, the ordinance is drafted, the overlay ordinance is drafted, is tighter for the township than the PRD ordinance.
Yeah, there was a fair amount of discussion early on. I proposed bigger lots, 1 acre lots. You guys said it wasn't feasible. I proposed wider streets. No, wasn't feasible. I proposed more off-street parking so people can at least park 4 vehicles, full-size vehicles, off the street on their own property. And that's not in the plan either. But then we got into where we're at now. But the properties in this town where people can't get their vehicles off the street causes chaos in that community, hardship. When it snows, they have to find somewhere else to park their vehicles. When neighbors have company, they're parking on their neighbors, in their neighbor's parking area, and then there's conflicts. And, we just don't wanna create something like that again.
For me, it is some of that, I mean, if you're gonna put it in a big bowl of soup, it's a lot of things mixed in. For me, I just think that we need to do our homework, I think we need to do our due diligence. I think we need to, I'm not a big fan of overlay. I think the term overlay, everybody snickers when we say IOP, what is IOP? Even the county said, what is IOP, what does that even mean? It's so outdated. So I think overlay is another one of those terms. It sounds great, but I mean.
I just feel like at this point, we've all heard enough to make a call one way or the other.
Yeah.
And if we wanted to send them away, so that we could do further research, we should have just done that on day one and just said, hey, you know what, just hold off, we're working on reworking this, the IOP, and, we'll consider other options when
But
we're.
there's a lot of factors, Brian, that go into this, and a lot of research. I mean, I have been talking to people, I have been doing some of my own due diligence. I think as a board, we need to do our due diligence, each one of us.
I agree, but I just think that we should just give them an answer one way or the other. So.
I did 9 months ago. I told these guys in a supervisory meeting, the current proposal at that time, now I know it changed a little now, I didn't think wouldn't fly with the current board. I told them 9 months ago. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the voice of, Brian, and that, it's in everybody's, interest. I mean, we need to make a decision on this at some point. I don't know. I don't know what new information will become available. I mean, I think we've kicked around what we believe are the benefits, and then what we believe are the, the potential drawbacks of developing it that way, per what the overlay says. I want to be respectful of, everybody's, time and energy in this, just so that, we can move forward. Did you have something specific that you wanted to look into that would, warrant another?
Yeah, I would like I'd really like to talk to the Berks County Planning Commission and in detail with them. That would be super nice to sit down with them and discuss
I would like to.
what they're talking
That'd be
about.
awesome.
But, the other thing is, we started discussing this and never finished it, and I just don't like the term overlay. That's one thing that that's not to focus on, but that's not, I don't like that term overlay. I just think it's horrible. I think you're inviting bad things.
it's kind of like spot zoning.
It is, it's spot zoning, and that's not good.
Can I make a suggestion? If that's what you wanna do, you should talk to the county planning, but you also should, whether it's gonna be Great Valley's gonna be your planner, but you need to involve a professional to help you to
And I
make
agree.
help you make a decision, because you were gonna do, some folks on this board, on this commission, it sounds like we're gonna do that 4 years ago, and it didn't happen. And in all fairness, you know, to the parties involved, you know, another 4 years is not acceptable. I don't think that's what you're asking, but involve some professionals and get a professional planner. If it's Great Valley, I think someone said that's a use for planning, and go have your meeting, your discussion with Berks County Planning. Because they are saying all through the county that there's a need for residential. And, you know, the big lot residential, I know people are gonna chuckle, but that's a waste of land. Because if there's a demand for 300 people to move into this area, if you take acre lots, that's 300 acres. If you have smaller lots, which is what we're seeing is what a lot of people want. We do a lot of homes throughout the middle part of the state and to the east, and they're smaller lots. And that might not be what your folks' opinion is, but that's kind of the reality, and it also has to do with price. Because
The trend right now, I would agree with you, seems to be small lots.
bigger lots are far more expensive to develop. More frontage, more footage of curb, street, sanitary sewer, water, the whole bit. So what my suggestion is, go get professionals to help you make the decision. And I think some of you might not agree with what they're gonna come back with, but we work with planners, you know, throughout the state, and that's what the trends
Do
are.
you mean a planner from like an engineering firm?
A land planner, a professional land planner. I'm sure that if Great Valley can help you with that, I'm sure that Eric can help you with that.
You mean Great Valley has a planner?
Like a fully licensed planner.
Yes,
The
that would-
American, the acronyms escaping me. right
And he'll
now.
plan our township as far as what should be commercial, residential.
He will advise you on what
Yes,
what
I
is
understand.
best.
And if he advises, residential, 200 homes or whatever, then his company, he has the engineers that'll be involved with the land development plans and all the, you know, fees that are associated with developing commercial versus residential.
Are you trying to say that?
Yeah, so what's your point?
Yeah,
Your point
Say
is
that
he's
the
dishonest?
That he's incentivized to, suggest that the guy would be incentivized to do more development, because they would make more money.
Whatever makes more money. The supervisors in this township.
You're really stretching it out, that's why you
The
should get a
supervisors in this
professional.
township are elected,
Serious cynicism.
okay, and they don't make money off of the development either way.
Then don't use Great Valley, use
Use a
an
third
outside
party.
professional firm.
Third party.
I just,
I
I understand the concern about the timeframe in which we intended to research, because I started coming to these meetings in 2017 when the whole first thing happened with the airport property. And I was very diligent about coming to the meetings because, you know, you guys were talking at the time about rezoning the IOP, which my house backs up to. So I started coming, and every week it would get, and here we are 4 years later, and now I'm on the board and we still haven't done it. Like, so I understand the concern about, like, hey, you say you want to like do research, but like, let's not, if you're gonna do it, if we're gonna do it, let's do it. Because, like I said, it's been 4 years, and it's been on the, you know,
And were we
on the
coming-
radar for 4 years.
Did we cancel all the meetings for 4 years, or we come into meetings like this with proposed developments, you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Land proposals, you know, development proposals. We've been here, but we couldn't focus on that because
I'm
we're
not,
coming
right,
to these
I'm not,
meetings.
right, I'm not saying that, I'm not touching on the reason why it's been 4 years. All I'm saying is I understand their concern, because it's been on topic, on the radar for 4 years, and it's still, you know,
Yeah,
incomplete.
but not a top priority.
I'm just, whatever.
The
It's
plan
just-
that we gave you, several iterations, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but several versions were done by a professional planner. The person that did this is someone that we use a lot, has very good reputation, he's out of the main line. We used a professional planner, and you pay them to do the design, just like you would pay a professional planner to look at your township that is only giving you advice, and you pay them for the advice, and they move on. They go to the next township.
See, like your plan there, I would never live in a place like that, and most of the people that I know or am friends with wouldn't live in a place like that.
I do live in a place like that.
Yeah, I understand, some people like it, but you say about smaller lots and everything,
Alan, that's not
that's
the issue.
because what you're building is the smaller lots, so that's all, that's affordable.
People want that, man, like, okay,
Some people
I'm gonna
do,
tell you
yes.
right now, I live in Highcroft, I would love to live on 5 acres of land, my wife wants to live in a neighborhood on a small lot. The end.
But it is a lot more work with a bigger lot, yes.
Yeah.
The
And
issue
expense.
before the commission is whether you're gonna recommend this, the overlay district go to the supervisors for a final decision, or not recommend, or take no action. Those are the three choices.
Right. Right?
Well, I mean,
So the motion, Roger's motion's still alive.
still
It
there,
needs
and
to
it'll
be-
stay alive.
It's on life support here. You're either gonna pull the plug or.
Yeah, so basically it's on hold until Jeff, he has his time, because it's 2-2.
What happens if nobody, what happens if he doesn't do it? I mean, does he have to do it?
You have a 3-hour executive
Yeah, like
session.
if he abstains,
The impact of him not voting would be,
Tie.
right, yeah, that's
it
it.
would be that the motion doesn't pass.
And it just
So,
dies.
Not voting is the equivalent of, you know.
I understand.
We just don't vote.
Just kind of curious.
The next meeting, we'll probably follow it again.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest you just call the question and vote. So that everybody's loud enough so that Joan can hear the votes.
Okay, so, this will be voting for forwarding the current motion as it stands to the board of supervisors, so.
With the recommendation.
With the recommendation to approve. So, Brian?
Yes. Aye.
Roger?
Nay.
Nay.
I'm not gonna vote.
The record should reflect a 2-2 vote, the motion fails. You need a majority of 5, which would be 3. We can move on to the next issue, unless you want to give direction on what you need from the professionals on this matter, if anything.
Additional.
That's all that I need.
On to the next item, I guess.
Thanks for your time.
Anything of note on plan review chart?
STL got their letter for extending their plans,
Okay.
March 2022. The board expressed some interest in them coming to give them an update on their plans, so I don't know, Eric, is there anything else to say about XTL's project?
No, I don't know that there's anything else to say from a planning standpoint. There's no foreseeable progress that's going to be made on the development based on my conversations with their attorney. They've requested a release of the financial security for the site work that's going on right now. That's got to be processed by Great Valley. That's more of an administrative issue, not a planning issue, but for the sake of planning, as a reminder, there's been no preliminary plan approval granted, there's been no final plan approval, they're still in the planning and design stages, and they've got hiccups with regard to what PennDOT needs as far as a Shiloh Road intersection. And they also have hiccups with regard to the contract that they anticipated receiving to stock the warehouse. So they're starting over with obtaining a request, or if they've starting over with trying to acquire that contract and continuing to work with PennDOT. So it will be some time before there's any movement. So there's been an extension of the plan review deadline given. There's a grant that they received jointly with the township that has a 3-year period that we're not up against yet. And I believe it can be extended if upon request. So right now, it's just gonna sit for a bit.
And real quick, you think even the March date will be passed and extended? Yeah.
That's fine. Anything else of note on here, any changes?
The board reaffirmed the Morgantown Apartments plan, that was reaffirmed last time, and they, I would imagine will soon wanna break ground. I mean, they just have to meet some legal requirements, but it's getting pretty close.
Yeah, okay.
So they're working behind the scenes, getting paperwork and stuff? 'Cause I haven't heard
Well, it
anything
seems
on
that
that.
One would expect that they're working to get some administrative loose ends tied up, but we've not heard from them in a few months.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a contractor over there with equipment or nothing.
The plans have not been
Surveyors
released.
even.
Plans haven't been released for recording. There's one additional agreement that they need to sign. That's not. It's a fairly innocuous agreement, but there's still just that one loose end.
I'm just gonna check that place out, see a lot, right? See if they're doing anything.
Once a week, sometimes more.
Yep. I'm not looking forward to it.
Kidjoy came through with all their stuff, got their plans recorded. Their stormwater had to get recorded a little later than the land development plan, but anyway, they got everything in order. So, they're getting a lot of inquiries about that land up there and what's going on.
And then we have placeholder for future projects, ordinance codification by the end of 2021.
Right, the board did approve a resolution, they included that item, and, it's about 13,000 for the base plan. And I was gonna mention for that codification, Eric, maybe you know, but it involves taking our ordinances and kinda like a mathematical algorithm or something where it puts all the pieces together and it'll spit out things that might be contrary to something else, another ordinance, so I'm
We'll
thinking.
be able to clean things up.
Exactly, so it's gonna be very beneficial. So hopefully by next month, we'll have the contract in place and they're gonna get started on that. It's gonna be about a year before you really see the results.
Oh, okay, I thought they were gonna have them by the end of the year.
No, it's gonna
Yeah.
require them, hopefully
Okay.
they come and scan our documents. If it's
Alright.
gonna be me, it's gonna take a little.
Oh,
while.
no, we'll hire somebody, we're not
It's
gonna
pretty,
do that
it's a
too.
pretty labor intensive
Yes.
process
Yeah,
to get everything digitized and then collated and then published online so that you'll be able to go to see the township code on the website. Be able to search by keyword, or whatever subject you're searching for, animal keeping,
Yeah.
nuisances, you name it, and you'll be able to really visualize what ordinances are outdated versus what's been updated. And, so it'd be a good thing. There will be an enactment process with public hearing, advertisement to enact that code, once it's in its final stages as well.
You can't have that done in a week?
Technology.
oh man, I'd like to be superwoman.
Guess we just have
Thanks for
comments
asking.
left of
So if we're gonna talk about, you know, continuing on with our, whatever we were doing with the IOP, like condensing down the commercial districts, like, you know, I forget where we were at with that. But is there anything we wanna, you know, like, do we wanna talk to the Berks County Planning Commission or whatever planner, or like, what do we need to do to kind of get that off?
First of all, first thing, I'd like to talk to the North County Planning Commission to get, you know what I mean?
I was really hoping they would
Detail.
show up.
Well, that's what I was hoping for tonight,
Yeah,
so that we
kind
can
of a
get
bummer.
a more detailed opinion.
Yeah,
Because what they wrote down on paper, that's great, it's all an open opinion.
right.
You know, and everybody keeps bringing their own opinions of,
I think
they've talked to the planning
But if we-
commission, and the planning commission told them we need more houses. but did they say in Carnarvon Township, did they say in Robinson?
Right.
Did they say in Hamburg? Because Berks County's a big county.
Sure, oh, yeah. I mean, hold on, do you think it would make a difference if we invited them to just discuss
Just a regular
the IOP, not related to any plan? Because then there's no like,
There's no attachment.
there's no attachment,
There's no
just
stigma.
we're already, we were considering this before, we're still working on this, we'd like some input, like, cause then it's not like, there's nothing for them to see,
There's not two sides, there's only
Right.
one side.
right?
And I think that would be beneficial. Eric, would you agree, disagree?
Well, that was part of the request that we made, was to have them come discuss the IOP generally and the best use for that property generally, not specific to any
I don't care if I have
development.
money there.
And, they did not wanna do that. They said rely on your existing comp plan or rely on your local planner to give you that kind of advice, is what they told us.
Okay,
Because
so
we
then-
had zoning, that we were working on, that was not too far off, if I remember right, from being kind of what we thought looked right. Am I correct when I say that?
We were making
And redistricting.
slow
Yes.
progress, but yeah.
Yes. Well, there were a couple of options, we talked about mixed use.
Right, we
wanted to
never
look into that and
So-
other options.
Right.
If they said, to rely on the local, our planner, who is that? Is it somebody from Great Valley? Can we get them in here, like?
We have
we gonna do?
personnel that specialize in planning, even if they are not certified planners, but at this time, we do not have any, where's the acronym? AICP, American Institute of Certified Planners. I don't believe anyone who has that certification is currently at Great Valley.
Okay.
But we have plenty of experience in helping generate zoning maps and comprehensive plans and all that stuff. That's part of why we're here.
Right.
Yeah, Jen was your certified planner, right?
I don't know that she had that
She
licensure.
didn't?
No, I don't believe she did. She was a professional engineer. She had a wastewater operator's license. I do not believe she was a certified planner.
She was our planner, but you were tonight too.
Yeah, right.
Because honestly, I guess one of the points, one of the points I was making was, if we're gonna put housing in there, then I would like that to be zoned for housing. I don't want, in my mind, I don't want a business district to have a blanket over it so we can put houses in
That's
there.
fine, yeah.
And I don't want the housing district, because then somebody's gonna come back and say, okay, I wanna build a business over here, a foundry. Ah, you can't, it's residential. And like, you build residential in industrial office park, why can't we build, you know what I mean, in residential? What's the difference? Let's just do an overlay. Well, now we're kinda stuck in a catch-22, we did an overlay. You know what I mean? So now, where are we with overlaying everything? I just think it's bad business. It's either gonna be residential, commercial, industrial, whatever we name it. I think we need to name it.
Well, there's
And
a
we'll
way to
go
get
from there.
through it quicker than going through a zoning change.
Yeah, that's why they wanted us to do that.
Right,
yes.
yeah, the semantics of
It would have
doing
took
it.
us, even if we did decide on all the IOP.
Even if we
what's gonna
agreed
be
on
called,
tonight, it'd be 3
yeah,
months.
at least,
Right.
maybe 6. till it's
So I
advertised and
understand
everything.
that, and I get that they're time sensitive, they have money involved, I
Sure.
understand.
Right.
But I don't wanna be pressured into doing something that I'm not comfortable doing.
That's fine. I'm just saying that if that's the case, whatever it
Yeah,
is, the
we'll be
next step
old
is,
men,
let's take
and
it.
our kids will be- you did
I mean, not
describe-
because of that, just because like,
In general.
like, yeah, because we're already considering it, like,
Right.
it's it's kind of like this open, like, we know it's an issue that has to be dealt with, right? With the
And I
IAA.
think we
Definitely
can
a
jump
name
on it.
change.
Right, all,
That
well, whatever
throws
it is,
everyone
at a
off.
bare minimum, right, but like,
Yeah.
so, like, whatever the step is, if we need to get a
Let's
planner
get
in here,
stepping.
let's take, yeah,
Yes.
let's get a step.
Yeah, I agree.
But personally, when I was thinking of residential, I never in a million years thought of any development. I was thinking like if a business owner had a business there and he wanted to build a nice home there, or even a mansion, he could put a single family dwelling in it. I never thought of development in high density housing, but you guys probably had something else in mind.
I mean, I always
We
envisioned
never got
that,
to talk it through.
yeah, like,
remember?
my.
You know what'd be really cool, but you have to have a buyer. I'm not trying to fool anybody with murders. You know what'd be really cool? If people who owned airplanes built a house there with their little
Yeah.
hangar in their basement, like they do in Alaska, that'd be really cool.
Like
But
they
you
do
have
in
to have the
Alaska.
flyers of the property.
They not sell their current
Well,
home.
that's, I mean, it is what, I'm just saying, that'd be cool.
I don't know if we
but
want
you
to
have
model
fire.
North Township on it, but
Honestly, if you find a rich investor to buy the airport, and like they did with Hawk Valley Golf Course, sell the lots based on you could live right with your plane and walk out your back porch door and go to your plane and fly. You know,
Yeah.
they did that with Hawk Valley, but then 20 years later or so, they got rid of the golf course. And all the people that lived around it, that golfed every day, they were angry. That'd be like them doing that and then tearing the airport
But
down, and putting houses there.
back to reality, back to the real nuts and bolts of all
Well,
this.
some people do that.
I would like to name it, I would like us to name it, what's best suited, what we feel like based on information.
Right.
And then let's go forward from there. Let's not, just because somebody has $1 in their pocket and they're willing to spend it, we're just gonna jump on a wagon and ride. I mean, I'm not, how do we know where the wagon's
No, I
going?
understand where you're coming from.
So, my thing is, let's get it figured out and
Yeah.
nailed down
Let's
first.
do it.
Then we'll move forward.
Let me hear from.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead. They-
I just, yeah,
Have their answer.
I just want a clarification. The gentleman talk at planning was the gentleman who did the Southern Berks Comprehensive Plan. Name escapes me at the moment. He never said anything about the housing. I talked to the Greater Berks Chamber Alliance and got that information. So you may wanna reach out to them, and also Pam Shook, who's a Kim Valley graduate, who's actually, there is a, economic development, division with the Berks, County. Just to get an idea of what they're thinking economic development wise, it might be a worthwhile phone calls, I think. So that's, and I made 2 of those calls today. Pam typically is very busy, so I didn't bother to call her. She's very hard to, but you might have better luck than I would. 'Cause I'm nobody.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We need input, we need
Yeah,
action.
and that's what I make those phone calls. I made phone calls to those people for you. I've also called, there's also a couple more economic development authorities in Berks, may wanna call them too. So that's what I've done off and on for a couple of years.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Laura Pilardo, I'm a resident of Northampton. You know, I've been listening for, not every meeting, but I've been listening for a little while, and my suggestion would be, now that you have this opportunity, you might wanna think more than just this property, but maybe bring in, you're all very intelligent, very diverse opinions, that's great, but none of us really knows A from B for traffic study or whatever. Take a little bit of money and a little bit of time maybe, and invest in an actual planner. Yes, they have different needs, but if you're hiring them to represent you, I would hope to God you find somebody ethical enough to do that and not represent the builders. And ask them, all right, the whole world got turned upside down from COVID. The populations are changing, the demographics are changing. What makes sense for this entire community now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Right.
Because we've never really had an actual plan of what we want this community to be, right? And this is a really good opportunity to maybe go a little farther than, well, what do we do, this piece of land is an overlay, is it whatever. Let's look at the whole thing and say, we got the casino coming in, we know there's that impact, we know 23 is landlocked, what do we do about that? Like, get an outside, objective opinion who's got some experience in smallish sized towns, pay them a little bit of money, instead of all of us throwing out ideas of, well, it'd be great if we had, you know, oh, a grocery store. Well, you know, whatever. So, you know, we haven't changed these plans in a long time. It might be worth putting the money just into getting an extra opinion that's sort of neutral and has some expertise and can answer your questions. Because I understand where you're coming from. Like, nobody wants to make a rush decision.
Right.
You want to do the right thing for your community,
Yes.
but we all aren't, we're not experts, right? So it might be worth spending a little bit of money to get a consultant in and talk to them, say, tell them what your vision is and see what they can make that look like and what they think is realistic versus not. Ask them for a likeness, see if they got a plan. Never gonna get one, right? But like, you can try, you know, so if you give them your ideas, maybe they can help you make it actionable. So that you don't have these situations where people are frustrated all around.
Well, and I also think that when this casino opens.
It's gonna change things.
It's gonna change
It is.
drastically,
You
and I'm
can't
afraid to
avoid it.
make any fast movements right now.
It's a fair
Because,
point.
because we don't know the implications of that. I mean, we have a good idea, you know what I mean? We've learned from other areas that build casinos, but that's other areas, that's not this, specific area. And what I'm getting at, I guess, is when the casino comes, people are gonna wanna buy gas. People are gonna wanna know where the local Walmart is to get whatever. Go grocery shopping on their way home. I don't know, whatever. But I think it's gonna change the dynamics of this town. We're gonna see more traffic, we're gonna see an influx of money and people in general. And so, when the people sit in the audience and say that, we need people, we need people, we need people, that's true. And I think we're soon gonna get some of those people. And, their money's gonna get spent here. This will become a destination, not a pass-through. It's always been a pass-through town for the tour buses, taking people out to see the Amish villages, et cetera. It's always been a pass-through town. It's now gonna be a destination, and that's gonna change things a lot. And that's what fears me. If we don't get our zoning right, then nothing's gonna be right.
Well, and you can't do it, well, what are we gonna do this year? I think it would be helpful to have a longer, short-term, mid-term, long-range plan of what you really want to look like. I mean, it's always gonna change, right?
Yeah.
But if you're gonna take the time, you need to get somebody to do it.
Oh, go ahead.
Sean, I'm pretty simple. When I got the Berks County Commission planning, I called the author. I just called Cheryl, who authored it, and talked to her. Just talked it through with her. I said, educate me on this. So she told me, well, here's our intent, but you have to leave room for you people to make your decision. So then she puts those next 10 points on there, so that you make sure you do your homework on those 10 points. And I agree with these women. What happened was, she was very helpful, and I just called her up, and I talked to her 3 or 4 times. And I would encourage you can just call her up. And, I just retired, but in my business, what you've been caught in is what I would call crisis management.
Yeah.
Because it was like the thumb was down, and I mean, you obviously feel the thumb. And when you're not prepared for it, it's really, really difficult. So I appreciate, your struggle. I really do.
Thank you.
Can we maybe do a motion to maybe bring it to the board that you'd like to get a outside planner to look at our plans?
Or what do we need to, what steps do we need
Yeah,
to take? to
have
get
it, or
somebody
ask, specifically ask in
I mean, 'cause
minutes
if
that
it
Joe.
involves spending money,
'cause-
right,
Yeah.
if it involves spending money, we have to,
Well, and that's part of what I think we need to sit down and plan. Let's figure out what steps we need to take to get this plan in action.
right, so let's do that
Proficiently.
right now. Let's figure out what the
So
next
you know
step
exactly
we
what the
take.
next step is?
No, that's what I'm
Okay,
trying to
let's
figure
find
out,
that
man.
out
Yeah.
Before we spend
But
money.
what I'm saying is, let's figure it out, let's
Yeah.
go ahead and just figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Let's-
and-
We need to figure out what we need to do, step by step, and then start taking it.
Well, I mean, this is why I'm
'Cause
saying
we-
this.
We jumped the gun and on anything, and we're just gonna end up with a big ball of wax.
Right, so what is the next step that we, that's my question.
I think it's, maybe ask the board, to have Joan look for
Get-
pricing of outside planners, just to get idea of pricing. And then in the meantime, you guys do your own due diligence. That's what I personally think. I mean, I'm not on the board, but I mean, you need to start
You
rolling.
can be.
And I have a little frustration of it. It's been 4 years that you guys were talking about the IOP district.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but it felt like it's been slow walked. I feel
Yes.
like it almost was on purpose as an outsider, and I'm very frustrated with that. I mean, I'm like, this something should have been resolved already. So I'm looking for this problem to start getting resolved immediately. If you've identified it, let's go get some pricing on a planner, get some ideas of places to go with, and have everybody say, all right, everybody do their due diligence, meet up next week or next month. Let's get
So,
rolling.
I could also say to you, you know how when you don't have the Parks and Recs minutes done for the meeting, And we ask you why, and you say, well, I had other things come up.
Yeah, I understand
We
that,
have other
but
things come up every
I
year.
know, but the problem is,
Nothing is done
No.
intentionally to drag our feet.
well, you know, I'm just saying hey, it's been 4 years. I did give you 4 years to do it.
Like, I get what she's saying, though. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I understand that we have all
We
kinds
apply.
of stuff and, you know,
Yeah.
who wants to be here till 10 o'clock at night.
It's
you know,
not
but-
even that.
No, but what I'm saying is, it's been a sort of thing that we do.
This is
As
a
time
9-month
allows.
postponement. This
Right.
was 9 months.
Right, I
So
understand.
it's almost a year that, out of those 4 years, this is 9 months
Right.
of postponement.
But that's not
So-
happen again.
Right.
Well, here's what happened, the Berks County planning, the whole thing with revising or updating the comp plan, they said, do not approve any
Anything.
rezoning matters. So for this commission, that's what they were told by the
Which
county.
happened a year and a half
And
ago.
it was nearly 2 years before the comp plan could get updated. And
You're right, I remember
and
that.
so the commission did look at the IOP and all the options, mixed use, there was C1, C2,
Yeah, we were
C3.
looking at
When,
it.
what was the other lady that was here? One of your members who moved?
Donna?
Donna.
Yeah.
She went through all of the ordinances, matched up
Oh,
which
yeah.
ones were
We saw- she did.
identical, and put
We saw-
a
we
lot
saw-
of
She did a great
time.
job on
She
that.
really did.
Yeah,
And so then Berks Homes showed up with
right,
their overlay
right.
9 months later, you know, so a lot has been happening.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, let's just get going. That's all. Let's get going. I mean, there's no reason we can at least go out, we can go get recommendations for a couple firms and, you know, start moving.
Where are we going?
We're gonna start, see if we wanna actually go get an outside plan and look at it or not, if that's something we wanna do. You can't do anything about knowing prices.
And that's something we need to discuss with Great Valley, because they are our engineering.
Yeah, but they don't have the certified person.
I think you want a third party.
Yeah,
We do
yeah.
want a third
Yeah.
party.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could generate a list of names for you guys, where they're obviously independent from us, but we've worked with them in the past.
Yeah, not that somebody would be wanting to benefit themselves by, but you could always get that accusation, you know what I'm saying?
So could we ask for
I think if you recommend more than one and say
Yeah,
choose,
right.
I think
that?
onus is taken away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
So-
conflict of interest.
So
And
can we
Eric,
ask,
I'm
I
sure
can
you
tell you,
know
we've never had a
they'll wait
finder's fee in my 14 and a half years of working in Great Valley.
So between Great Valley and Siani, I'm sure we can come up with a couple names to look at. And get I think in our personal due diligence, we need to talk to Berks County Planning Commission. We need to talk to the Chamber of Alliance and figure out what in steps, what we should be doing to benefit us, to benefit the community. That's what I think.
so
So
can we
to-
ask Great
to-
Valley for a list of
Yeah, absolutely.
recommendations?
And also Eric, please.
I would just suggest then that each one of you pick something that I'm gonna call somebody, I'm gonna call somebody, I'm gonna call this person, and then you could talk, cause sometimes it's easy to say, we should do this, and no one actually does it.
Right.
So just say, okay, I'm gonna call Berks,
That's why we have
I'm
to
gonna
use
call that person, and I'm
They
gonna call
actually
that
do it.
person.
So why don't we leave it at this, like, for your next meeting between Joan, I, and Great Valley, we'll have a list with resumes, fee schedules prepared of people willing to accept the representation for your review. And then you can make a decision on who to recommend to the board at that time. And if you need to interview people, then you can arrange to do that, but by next month, I think it's perfectly reasonable for you to have a list with some supporting documentation, and information about each one for me to bring to the table.
Because one of the things that I'm thinking about, that I can't stop thinking about, is Berks County had to have hired an independent company, and also by the county, done studies and surveys on what should be where, when, and how. I almost have to believe, and I would like to get my hands on that, to be honest. I would like to see what their planner said should be done with what we have left here in Carnarvon. Somebody had to have done it.
I mean, I
For
didn't,
them to do an entire redo of the whole system last year, they had to have an outside planner.
Yeah, I really-
helping.
I was
They would
told
be
they
here.
didn't, Jeff.
They
I was
didn't?
told by Cheryl that they did it internally.
The comp plan, the joint comp plan?
Yeah, the comp plan.
Now, did they
That's
have a
what she
certified
told me.
person?
Huh?
Did they have a certified person in-house?
They have certified.
They had to have had
Yeah,
somebody
I-
certified to do that.
they
I have no
certified
idea on that part, but
planners.
she said they actually, did their work themselves. They
And I
were,
would like to see that, not necessarily for their whole county, but for right here.
I asked that question of Cheryl, cause I wanted to talk to the planner.
Yeah, I was kinda hoping they would be here, because I didn't find that letter to be terribly helpful, because all they basically did was say, well, this is what your ordinance says, but if you wanna do it anyway, here's some things to
Yeah.
consider.
This
It's
is
like-
in line with.
Right, it's like, yeah, well,
the
we know it's
comp
not in line with the thing, because that's why we're having the discussion in the first place.
And then the people that we would wanna meet with, they didn't come tonight, so how would we meet with them? Was it that they didn't wanna meet in a public forum and be on record, or, cause I think that's the hurdle here. If we wanna
Kinda
reach
like-
out, do we have to reach out
Maybe two of us can go have a meeting with
Like,
them.
well,
Yeah.
if what Gary was saying was true, where he said that the guy didn't wanna come because he didn't wanna seem like he was siding with the
Yeah,
developer.
because it was tied to a project.
Right, so if
we
it's not,
just invited
if we
it to the
should,
board,
I think we
yeah.
should just give it another shot at another invitation, not tied to any plan,
Yeah.
just,
Completely
specific
wide
thing,
open.
yeah, this is something we're working on right now.
What do you
We'd love
think,
to have
Tim, would they
some
do
input.
that, or?
Well, I got the feeling that they just don't
They're
do
not
that for
coming.
municipalities, they would be stretched very thin.
Okay.
Because when a land development plan comes through and it's approved, it all goes to them for
Right.
review, so they're overwhelmed with all
Yeah.
Berks County plans. I don't know that they have the staff.
So could
I
we
mean,
go
I
to,
don't,
There's 60-some municipalities in the county.
well, do they have
Right.
do they have meetings, like monthly meetings?
Yes.
Could we go to one of their meetings and just, like,
Just
pepper
call-
them with
just call 'em
questions?
up. Just do a joint conference call.
Just call.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but if we go, we get the whole
I could
comments
call.
from the whole board.
I could even call and just ask if there are other options, if you want me to. Matt McGough is the one who helped us with the joint.
Yeah, to see,
plan.
like,
Yes.
how
So
we
if you
can,
can-
how
if you
can,
can
how
call
can we
Matt.
get input
Yeah,
from that?
he's
let's
very
see
helpful.
how we can do this.
Yeah.
That we
How
can, cause I would
Yeah.
like us all to sit there and hear the same words.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
That way, nothing gets changed.
'Cause we
Everything
can't-
stays what you heard.
We can't all
Yes,
go
but
somewhere,
people
right,
interpret things
at the same time?
Well-
It's just the way it is.
Well, I'm just wondering too, if
It wouldn't be in a quorum.
So we couldn't all go to one of the meetings and,
It would have to be
Well, you would
advertised.
just be a member of the public if you're just sitting there.
And then
Even
you
if
can-
we're all there.
Yeah, if we're not making
Yeah, if
decisions.
you're not deliberating over your local Carmen Township matters, then you don't need to advertise.
okay.
Well,
Just out of curiosity.
If you could call Matt
Matt's
and
willing
find
to
out.
come, I mean, if Matt's willing to come to one of your meetings.
Yeah.
Would that
That'd-
be okay?
Yeah,
That would be an awesome
Be
first
awesome.
step. That
Say
would be a
what-
huge first step.
that'd be great, yeah,
All right, we'll
Yeah.
try that.
yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great. And then that's with the, getting the list of possible planners from everything, Great Valley, and everything else.
I think if we get a good certified planner, we
Yeah.
should be well on our way.
Yeah.
Because they'll do most of the
And
work
I'm not
as
so
far as-
sure from this day forward that we shouldn't have one anyway, because,
Oh, sure.
on the Rolodex, if you will. You know what I mean? Because this isn't the first or the last situation we're gonna have to deal with.
Like, I mean,
A lot of our zoning needs updated,
And we
not
can use
just
all of that.
IOP.
I agree with your
but all.
sentiment that our job is to plan and not react to,
Right.
so.
And back to the codification, I didn't realize how in depth they go, which Eric probably knows about it, but they go very deep into your zoning ordinances. They actually have attorneys, that's what you're paying for. And so you're gonna be surprised maybe at what's gonna be spit out of this review, conflicts, things that they
And they
recommend.
feel that quoted price is accurate?
Well,
That seems like a steal if it is.
well, it's the basic plan, and I asked him if we can just go with that, and then, we have our rescue funds, that if, the board wants more, we could go further. But yeah, I mean, 13 grand that's a lot of money. It's really worth it.
Double what we were
Well
paying the
worth it.
chief up until a couple months ago. You know what I mean?
But
I'm sure it's gonna cost a lot more than that. That quote was if we would have our records more in line, but we just updated something from what, 1950 or something like that, or 59?
yeah,
They're gonna find a lot of stuff we're gonna have to fix. Yeah, and the bill would have to go up a little.
So we'll keep an eye on that, but it's gonna be nice.
But
Yep.
exponentially nice, because you can hit a button and get what you want.
Yes,
Anyway.
Yeah.
it all makes sense what's happening, you know?
Yes.
We always had to dig for stuff manually, now you can just go to the computer.
Well, anybody
punch a
can, I mean,
keyword.
our residents can go on.
Yes.
They'll
Chickens.
go on
Yep.
About chickens and ducks, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, my.
Do we have a chicken calculator?
Rhinos, you can put that on.
Yeah.
I think it's
You need a self-chicken calculator.
In our poultry app.
Any other comments? A motion to adjourn?
I'll make that one.
Second?
You all second.
All right.